Choosing the right ability cards in Red Dead Online is a bit like choosing toppings for your pizza. Most of them are perfectly edible, but if you want the best experience, you need to experiment and see what works for you. Unless we're talking about pineapple, which is the worst crime you can commit against pizza. A couple years ago, I did a video explaining one of my favorite ability card loadouts in great detail, and I also did a video ranking every ability card in Red Dead Online from worst to best. But this one's going to be a little bit different. In this video, instead of talking about individual cards or a single build, I'm going to cover several of the best ability card builds, each specialized for a specific playstyle. Think of this as a loadout library, where you can pick and choose different builds to play around with. I and many others have already done the hard work of testing to see what works and what doesn't, and that alone should save you hundreds of hours of playtime. With all that said, let's kick things off with one of my favorite ability card loadouts, which you can call the no-tonic loadout, since it's designed to be completely self-sufficient and it will save you lots of money while you're grinding legendary bounty missions in PvE because you won't be spamming tonics the entire time. The foundation of this loadout is Painted Black, which is your active Deadeye ability card that serves as the primary damage output. And then the three passive cards are Eye for an Eye, Strange Medicine, and Cold-Blooded. All three of these work extremely well in combination with Painted Black to restore your health and Deadeye, so you don't have to spend over $50 a mission just on tonics. Now let me explain how this works in practice. First, Painted Black gives you perfect accuracy whenever you activate it, allowing you to land easy headshots on enemies. And this is especially useful in PvE against AI enemies because they can't dodge your shots or use tonics. But Painted Black has an activation cost, sustainment cost, and a small per shot cost that can drain away your Deadeye pretty fast when you're facing large groups of enemies. This is where Eye for an Eye comes in, because with every kill that you get via a headshot, Eye for an Eye will restore a whopping 20% of your Deadeye bar. Mind you, that card needs to be upgraded to level 3 for that, so don't be confused if your Eye for an Eye isn't restoring as much at tier 1 or tier 2. I'm going to be assuming for this guide that you have all level 3 cards upgraded, and if you're a regular player, it isn't really that hard to level up your cards, and you should do so as soon as you can for the cards that you like and are planning to use most. Now next we've got Strange Medicine, which is the only card in this build with a debuff since it drops your passive health regen to half its normal rate. But you don't have to worry about this during combat, so it's not as big of a negative as you think. Plus, the bonus is that whenever you inflict damage on an enemy, you gain health back. It's basically a lifesteal mechanic, and it will keep your health topped up as long as you're dishing out damage on enemies, allowing for a very aggressive playstyle. You heal 20% of the damage dealt, so I like running high damage weapons with this build. You could also use a Lancaster repeater for the high rate of fire and better sustained DPS in a run and gun scenario out in the open, but also hitting enemies with a Carcano or shotgun will also fill up big chunks of your health bar with every single shot, allowing you to weave in and out of cover more effectively while still maintaining lots of HP. Finally, we've got Cold-Blooded as an ability card here, which complements Strange Medicine extremely well. This is also a health restoration card, and basically it's a passive ability that's activated when you kill an enemy. With each kill, you restore 3.33% of your health bar per second, which translates to 10% of your health bar restored every 3 seconds. And yes, it does stack with Strange Medicine, so as long as you're racking up kills in PvE, you can tank an absurdly high amount of damage without having to pop a single potent health cure. And because you have Eye for an Eye, you won't have to use snake oils either. Not only does this build save you money on each mission, but it also speeds up the pace of gunfights and makes them much more exciting because you aren't popping tonics every 5 seconds. Instead, you get to run around and shoot a bunch of bad guys while feeling like Rambo. It's an awesome build, and you should definitely give it a try if you haven't already. I like to call this next one the Terminator because you can just mow down enemies effortlessly with insane amounts of damage. The downside to this build is that it lacks regeneration, but you won't need any if you play it right because your enemies will be dead before they get a chance to shoot back. Now first, for your active ability, you want Focus Fire. When you activate this card, it gives a flat damage boost to you as well as your allies. However, multiple instances of this card won't stack, so you only need one for your entire posse. Any more than that, and it's a waste of an active slot. The damage bonus can vary by weapon. For example here, pistols gain 21% damage, while repeaters get 19% and rifles get just 9.8%. As a general rule though, you can assume somewhere around an average 20% damage boost whenever Focus Fire is active versus it not being active. Then, the first passive card in this Terminator loadout is Winning Streak, which adds an additional 10% damage for each consecutive shot on the same target. I think you can already see where I'm going with this here. The second passive card is Peak Condition, which reduces your stamina consumption while sprinting and also increases your damage output based on how much stamina you have left. Not only is this an excellent PvE card, but it also works extremely well in PvP modes like the Showdown series where you're constantly on the run. And finally, for the third passive card in this loadout, we're going to go with Landon's Patience, which increases the damage of your shots based on the time elapsed between each one. You'll most easily see the maximum benefit from this card in different PvP situations where you're sniping enemies, because there's usually a bit of a down period between each kill that you're getting, unless multiple guys are rushing at you, in which case you can replace Landon's Patience with some other card like Sharpshooter, for example. Speaking of sharpshooters, my next loadout here is customized for snipers specifically. If you like using the Carcano or the rolling block rifle, this is going to be the perfect loadout for you, as you can instantly delete enemies from extreme distances before they even know you're there. In this build, you're going to use slow and steady as your active Deadeye ability to reduce incoming damage by 20% and make it so headshots aren't an insta-kill. Since you're sniping, you won't need to be running or sprinting around, so the downside isn't as important in this case. Next, for the passives, you want Peak Condition, Landon's Patience, and Sharpshooter. All three of these are going to boost your damage. Peak Condition will do so based on your remaining stamina, Landon's Patience will increase damage based on time between shots, and Sharpshooter increases outgoing damage while simultaneously decreasing incoming damage whenever you're looking through a scope. There's another version of this build that utilizes Slippery Bastard instead of Slow and Steady and Gunslinger's Choice instead of Landon's Patience. Basically, you retain all the damage output of the first build while also making yourself a tougher target for people trying to ambush or flank you in close quarters. In this version of the sniper build, I prefer to go with the Carcano rifle and either dual sawed-off shotguns or dual pistols to take advantage of Gunslinger's Choice. You slightly reduce your potential to hit one-shot kills at extreme ranges, but in return, you have a more balanced build that's more survivable if somebody decides to sneak up on you. And having a posse member with focus fire is also going to be super helpful here if you're going with the sniper build, as it increases your damage even further. Just make sure you're wearing clothes that blend into the background and your enemies won't even know what hit them. If you want to see your enemies bleed up close and personal, you're probably going to be using a shotgun here, in which case I have another ability card loadout to fuel your high octane shotgun rampages. First, you want to tank up because you're going to be taking a lot of incoming fire, and for this, our active ability card must be quite an inspiration, as it regenerates 4% health per second and it isn't interrupted by taking damage. Alternatively, you can also tonic spam and go with the Slippery Bastard ability card, which makes you harder to hit, so instead of tanking damage, you're avoiding it, and since you're basically staring the enemy right in the face with a shotgun, the reduction to your own accuracy won't be as much of a disadvantage as it normally is. For the passive cards, you need Strange Medicine, Fool Me Once, and Cold-Blooded. Strange Medicine again works really well since you're dealing tons of damage with your shotgun, and Cold-Blooded allows you to keep up the tempo, going from one kill to the next in quick succession. Fool Me Once is also a nice way to reduce incoming damage from the same enemy, especially if they're using repeaters or pistols. Since consecutive hits do less damage, it's like Winning Streak, but in reverse. When fully ramped up, you take 30% less damage passively, but you must tank 3 shots to get there. Now, some of you might want a tanky loadout because you're playing in a posse and you've been given the role of Bullet Sponge because your aim isn't all that good. Well, don't worry here because I've got something just for you. First, use the active ability card slot, A Moment to Recuperate. It works like this. When you activate it, you generate 8% of your health per second, but the effect stops when you take damage. So the way you're going to play this is you pop out of cover, deal some damage, and get back into cover to activate your Deadeye and heal. You can also go with quite an inspiration if you want a more reliable way to heal, since it doesn't deactivate upon taking damage, but the healing rate is just 4% per second compared to A Moment to Recuperate's 8% per second. So you can pick and choose depending on your playstyle. For your 3 passives, you want Strange Medicine, Fool Me Once, and Never Without One. Strange Medicine again heals based on the amount of damage you deal. Fool Me Once reduces damage from consecutive shots fired by the same enemy, and Never Without One protects you from headshots if the bullet hits your hat. Now, of course, by the way, doesn't need to be stated here, hopefully at least. Make sure you're wearing a hat while using Never Without One, otherwise you're missing out on the main benefit. In fact, you'll actually take an additional 17.3% damage if you don't have a hat and you use that Never Without One ability card. There's going to be another version of this tank build here that uses quite an inspiration, Iron Lung, of Single Purpose, and To Fight Another Day. Of Single Purpose is generally a terrible card unless you're using it for a melee build, in which case you take 10% less damage while unarmed or using a melee weapon, and since you're using melee weapons, you're probably going to be sprinting around a lot, so you'll need to use To Fight Another Day, which reduces damage taken by a further 10% while sprinting. You can also replace quite an inspiration with Slippery Bastard for PvP scenarios, since the extra evasion is more valuable than a slight boost to your HP regeneration rate when you're going up against human players. And next up, we have the all-arounder. In this one, we're going to pair slow and steady with fool me once, iron lung, as well as winning streak for a really well-balanced PvP build that's good at both defense as well as offense. I like to call this one the all-rounder because you can make it work with basically every sort of loadout, from rifles to repeaters to snipers and even shotguns. With winning streak, you can kill enemies really fast even with body shots from a repeater, replace iron lung with sharpshooter, and you can also counter people who are running around with slippery bastard since that card's evasion buff is useless against scoped weapons. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, my top ability card loadouts for dominating Red Dead Online. There are a few others I can think of, but I didn't really include them in this video because it would make the whole video way too long. But let me know if you guys would like to see a part 2 of this ability card series. I'd also love to know about your personal favorite ability card loadouts, so definitely drop a comment down below with what cards you use and why you use them. If you liked the video, please drop a like on it and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and you want to see more Red Dead Online videos like this in the future. And as always, I will see you guys in the next Red Dead Online video. Adios, amigos.